Good afternoon, distinguished leaders, partners, colleagues, guests. It's such a pleasure being here. As we are gathering here for the final session of the summit, I think it's right to start by acknowledging how far we have come since the last summit in Paris. What an amazing journey this was. And the efforts that were made by the School Meals Coalition members and partners are so visible in the recently released State of School Feeding Report 2024. It's such an amazing demonstration of the significant strides that you have made, we have made collectively to ensure that we are reaching more children with school meals, and we are getting closer to our 2030 goal. And your collaboration and your commitment are truly inspiring. So this session is actually about us collectively, because as countries lead the way to achieving the coalition goals, it is clear that strategic collaboration with governments, civil society, UN agencies, but also other partners, it's not only beneficial, it's essential. So today's dialogue is designed to be high level and at the same time action-oriented, focusing on how we can strengthen government-led school meals programs through robust multi-sectoral support. And we will explore how coordinated efforts across sectors are delivering sustainable, inclusive, and locally grounded solutions that uphold the rights and meet the needs of the children. But at the center of our conversation, as George was saying earlier, needs to be the lived experience, the experience of the children. So I want us to begin this segment with children's voices. And we have prepared a video of children from across 13 countries. Children that participated in a child-led research, and they are going to share very powerful messages with all of us about what school meals actually mean for them. And representing them on stage, we have Davila, 14 years old, young researcher from Fortaleza, and she will be drawing on the research results from the research that World Vision has supported children in 13 countries to talk to their peers. So let's hear what they will have to say. And through her intervention, Davila will amplify the voices of children. Then we will hear from governments about the impact that this partnership model is having in their countries. And we will then conclude by reconnecting with where the School Meals Coalition started at the UN Food Systems Summit, highlighting how coalitions that were born in that space, in that process, are now working together to scale the school meals and drive food systems transformation. Let us start with the video.
அதாவது கிரேட் 1 to 5 வரை உள்ள ஸ்டூடெண்ட்ஸுக்கு தான் பெரும்பாலும் ஸ்ரீலங்காவை பொறுத்தளவில். அப்போ அதனால் நாங்கள் வந்து அதை ஒரு ரிசர்ச்சாக செஞ்சோம். அந்த ரிசர்ச் மூலயமா கிரேட் 1 to 5 ஸ்டூடெண்ட்ஸ்க்குள்ள பெனிஃபிட்ஸ் என்னென்னு, அவங்களுக்கு அந்த ஸ்கூல்ஸ் மிஸ் கிடைக்காத ஸ்டூடெண்ட்டுக்குள்ள என்னென்ன பிரச்சனை அவங்களுக்கு இருக்குது, திடீர்னு அவங்க கிரேட் 1 to 5 வரை ஸ்கூல்ஸ் மிஸ் கிடைச்ச பிறகு
chakunje ku school kyofunikira kuti nthawi zina timakhala kuti tambwera ku nyumba kuja osadya.
School meals help us in our studies. It reduces the journeys that we do when going to eat home. When it is far, we be late at school and we don't study well.
que eu gostaria de comer na escola todos os dias é uma refeição equilibrada, com proteínas, grãos, fibras. Eu acho que isso não pode faltar de jeito nenhum.
අපට පාසයෙන් දිවාහාරය ලබා දෙනවා. එම ආහාර වේලේ බස් පලා පරිප්පු සත්ආහාර වැනි ආහාර තියෙනවා. ඒ ආහාර වේල දුන්නත් නම් දවසේ පාසල් වැඩ කරන්න අමාරුයි.
Vamos investir mais nos nossos alunos, que é o futuro do país. E se a gente é o futuro do país, que a gente seja tratado como tal.
وهذا المشروع بطلب من الحكومة إنه عن جد تسمع هذا الفيديو وتسمع صوتنا، ياخذوا القرار الصح وتقدم وجبات صحية.
Thank you. Davila, do you have a microphone? Davila, thank you so much for being with us and being the voice of so many children around the world. You have heard what they said. You have learned a lot by listening to them. Can you share with us what you heard from the children in the research? And how does it make you feel to be the voice of so many children around the world?
Nossa pesquisa foi feita por mais de 1.200 crianças em 13 países diferentes. E foi uma honra poder participar, de ouvir todas essas crianças, porque a nossa alimentação é o fruto do nosso futuro, é o fruto da nossa aprendizagem. Sem alimentação, a gente não consegue ter um foco na nossa aprendizagem. E saber que existem muitos países que têm acesso a essa alimentação é de suma importância. Nossas crianças querem essa alimentação, elas têm esse direito à alimentação. É muito bom saber que muitas crianças ficam felizes com essa alimentação. Eu vi muitos aspectos positivos de muitos depoimentos que crianças me disseram que a alimentação escolar deles é boa, é saudável, eles conseguem manter o foco na aprendizagem, porque a nossa alimentação é o combustível para melhor aprendizado, foco, para a gente poder criar o futuro. Somos o futuro da nossa geração. E quando a gente fala em alimentação, a gente está falando do principal para a gente seguir esse caminho.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. And more than that, thank you for being here with us to remind us all why it is important to hear from the children and to make sure that we have an immediate feedback loop of how the school meals are actually serving their ultimate purpose, to bring children to school, to be beneficial for them, to bring them satisfaction of being there. But we have a group of leaders. We are in a room filled with leaders. And Davila, you have the chance to ask them, on behalf of the children you heard from, what is it that they can do better to improve the school meals in their countries?
Nessa pesquisa que foi feita com a opinião de muitas crianças, que elas puderam dar o seu depoimento de o que elas achavam, a gente achou pontos muito positivos, o que é muito importante, mas a gente achou coisas que podem ser melhoradas, coisas que a gente viu que dava para melhorar, porque se tá bom, sempre dá para melhorar. E aí a gente ouviu de muitas crianças que elas queriam mais higiene nos talheres, elas queriam mais acesso à comida e principalmente maior quantidade e o principal, que na opinião delas, que foi muito importante, que metade das crianças pediram, foi escuta. Porque quando a gente fala de melhorias, a gente não fala somente de culinária, a gente fala também de voz, de escuta, de
gastronomy, we were thinking about having our voices heard.
Muito
Our children really want to take part of all of this. They want to be involved, they want to be engaged. It was a great honor for me to be here representing them, because I feel that when when they see me here, we will have that ownership. There is a teenager there. As one of us, representing us, that went to the field to do the research and show that can be done differently, that can be improved. And they feel this trust, and they feel they can rely on it. That's, my God, there is a child, there is a teenager there that listens to me, that hears my voice, that understands me, that wants me to have a good quality meal, but I'm not here to represent what I feel, but what the teenagers feel. So we want to be heard. Our meals are very important, and then we can so learn when we have good meals, but we can even better when we are not on an empty stomach. So here now, I would like to ask you, leaders, politicians, authorities, that please improve our school meals. Listen to us. Be nice to us. Be nice to our voice. Listen to what we have to say, because I'm not speaking for myself, but for all those children, for those countries.
Thank you so much, Davila. It's amazing to have young leaders like you representing voices of so many children. That gives you the authority and the credibility to be here. But I want to assure you that your message was very clear, and it certainly touched hearts and minds in the room. Thank you so much. We are now moving in the second segment of our short session, and we will hear from governments because the second part of our session is called Delivering on Commitment, collaborating to advance school meals for every child. So let's turn our attention to what it truly takes to translate ambition into action. And we will explore successful models from multi-agency partnerships to large-scale investments that demonstrate how aligning global strategies with national priorities and grounding programs in community needs can really drive impact. So I have with me the Minister of Agriculture from Haiti, His Excellency Mr. Vernet Joseph, Minister of Primary and Secondary Education from Zimbabwe, His Excellency Dr. Torerayi Moyo, and representing the civil society network, Mrs. Haydee Diaz from the Catholic Relief Services. So let me start with His Excellency, Minister Vernet Joseph, Minister of Agriculture, Natural Resources and Rural Development in Haiti. Minister, we heard yesterday about a very bold commitment of Haiti, and I wanted to congratulate you for setting such ambitious goals for the children. Could you speak to us on how you are working across sectors and with the Inter-America Development Bank, with education above all, and with the Global Partnership for Education, to leverage new funding to expand the reach of Haiti's school meals program, including the role of these partners and local communities in this effort?
Merci, Madame la Modératrice. Je voudrais d'entrée de jeu présenter les remerciements de la délégation haïtienne pour l'accueil qu'elle a reçu des autorités brésiliennes, et nous devons vous dire que cela nous a touchés du plus profond de nous-mêmes. Je voudrais également profiter pour présenter les félicitations sincères aux différents membres ayant contribué à l'organisation de cet événement. Et vous n'allez pas me trouver un petit peu exagéré si je vous dis que le sens de l'organisation, l'hospitalité font partie du bagage génétique
really important and are a important part of this Brazilian baggage, as we could call it. So I wanted to speak about some things and highlight that the Haitian government really pays a lot of attention to the school canteens program. We've seen here the presence of 2 ministers in the federal government. The one that works with the national education, and myself, who are here together. We are here in this very important event that deals very clearly and shows the importance that our Haitian government gives to the school meals program. But I'll tell you that this issue of school meals in Haiti, it doesn't nourish only the children, it actually also favors the school attendance and learning as well. It does improve nutrition, and actually it supports children's development, cognitively speaking. There is a dynamism in our local economies. We also have the local procurement model, which is supported by the national school program with millions of dollars invested every month that actually focus on the national production. And in order to overcome the obstacles of these canteens, which is a huge concern that we have for the Haitian government, what we do is to develop a hybrid agriculture, which means family agriculture, matched with oriented agriculture, so that we can have a better development. For instance, we speak about how this could affect livestock and our vegetables, crops. As for family agriculture, our government, we give technical training associated to the capacity building of these producers, of these farmers. So improving the water resource infrastructure in order to improve the yields and the agriculture production. And this is done through 10 different geographic departments in our country that integrate 33 river basins that we have. And for the oriented agriculture, in order to have a better performance, we encourage the micro-entrepreneurs, the startups, trying to promote the crops and also trying to help the production in order to favor the food system, increasing its added value, improving the production, and reducing the post-harvest stress, and also getting local benefits, integrating all this to our storage strategies and sending all this to the school canteens. Today, the synergies between the different governments as the partner, international and national institutions, all this will allow us to take 2 million of students and that we can benefit through this school nourish program. This is a good coverage, but at the same time it has its own drawbacks. And with respect to that, the Haitian government is taking very aggressive measurements to give technical and financial support with the support of the Haydee, Inter-American Development Bank, with the support of the World Bank, with the Canadian Development Agency, the US, Norway, and also other institutions as well.
Nous avons en cours un programme dans les départements du Nord et du Nord-Est du pays.
We have created programs to our northeastern regions up to 2007 to fund the use of $2 billion. Now we have a perspective of 13 million to cover the other countries' areas and regions by the end of the year. These efforts, ladies and gentlemen, they are very interesting, but we need to work with more because we need to have a vision of putting into practice financial mechanisms align humanitarian aid and the annual budget to be predictable. So we need to create a durable synergy between agriculture, nutrition, and education, always privileging self-cooperation. Of course, with Brazil involved in, so we can share experience and concrete experience, balance and adjust and adaptable. Last, we need to develop school canteen programs that can be even more intense now. Of course, that we've been talking about Haiti, their needs, and I have to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that we need to protect our children and support the farmers. This is all to do with the national program. It's collective effort that demands a lot of mobilization of the government, financial and technical partners, and our communities. Last, not least, I wanted to say something very, very simple. To die, all of us that are here to die, we are masters of our fates and destiny. We need to have faith, courage, be brave, and have goodwill, and we'll definitely be victorious with respect to implementing this program in the global scale. Thank you very much.
That was such a beautiful closing. Thank you so much, Minister. We will conclude at the end, but let us move in the panel, and I have a question for you, Minister. So can you tell us, Minister Torerayi Moyo, in Zimbabwe, your ambition on school meals and the integration of nutrition with school meals. And can you tell us how your government is progressing with engagement of different sectors and partners to achieve that?
Thank you very much, Moderator. I want to appreciate all the delegates who are here. In Zimbabwe, we prioritize school feeding. It is mandatory, and we have a total of 8,014 primary schools that are benefiting from the assistance that we are giving by providing not just a meal, but a balanced diet that we give to our students. And it is imperative on government to provide funding for school meals. We deliberately get an allocation from Ministry of Finance. Normally we get around 5 million USD from Treasury that we use to finance school feeding. We have an ambitious program where every student from early childhood development and care up to grade 7 is supplied with at least one hot meal a day. So there is political will, and I want to commend my government, especially my president, Comrade Dr. Emerson Dambuzo Mnangagwa, for valuing the importance of giving a health meal to every student. So we have a student population of 3.6 million students who are benefiting from school meals. And how do we do it? At every school, we have developed what I describe as a school business unit, where through a whole of government approach, through a whole of intersectorial approach, the government relies on our partners, GP partners. We also rely on other ministries like agriculture, health, and we work together very well with civil society organizations to ensuring that every child in Zimbabwe benefits from school feeding. At every school, learners working closely with parents, they grow vegetables like cabbages, tomatoes, and those are used for school feeding. In the villages, we have an ambitious program where the government has drilled not less than 20,000 boreholes, and we have established what we call village business units. So it means the communities, they produce vegetables for the school, while students also at the school, they do produce food for the students. And I must commend the government when we had an El Nino-induced drought because of climate change in 2024. The government had to intervene by providing more than 25,000 metric tons of mealie meal and rice, which we distributed to all the schools. And that was a very important gesture that was done by the government. And we collaborate with our partners, like World Food Program, even GP, partners like UNICEF. They provide us school improvement grants targeting feeding of the learners. And we want to applaud the Brazilian government, what we have learned here through the benchmarking. We have noticed that Brazil is a leader in terms of school feeding. And we have learned quite a lot, and we are going to implement those. And Zimbabwe joined the School Meals Coalition in 2023. I was in Paris when we had the first School Meals Coalition. And because school feeding is part of the SDG, Sustainable Development Goals. And another very important person I need to commend in Zimbabwe is the First Lady, Her Excellency Dr. Auxilia Mnangagwa, who has worked tirelessly to support the Ministry of Primary and Secondary Education. So she would deliberately give funding, sometimes she would do some tours, feeding learners in most of our provinces. Or she would select some schools in all the 10 provinces. And we have seen that as a very important step to achieving our goals of ensuring that we provide quality, inclusive, relevant education. And it is important to give food so that even the retention, attendance, punctuality, because they know there will be food. Our results are improving every year because people are excited to be getting a balanced diet, and we have seen that it has worked very well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was so inspiring, so inspiring. I have so many notes, so already I have to change page. Thank you, Minister. Let us move into the CSO network, and I'm so thrilled to have Haydee Diaz representing Catholic Relief Services. But you're here with us, Haydee, today representing the Civil Society Network. And we have been working quite a lot in the past months, trying to put together the coalition again and trying to figure out what was achieved since the last call to action 2 years ago when more than 100 NGOs came together. And I know that you have been part of this group that worked on putting together that assessment, the survey, and truth being told, civil society organizations are playing such a pivotal role in coordinating with communities, supporting governments, being present, being feet and foot on the ground for the school meals in so many contexts. So can you tell us what in our call to action for the coalition as it works towards achieving universal meal coverage by 2030 you think is the most important?
Thank you so much, Dana. It's a pleasure to be here. Good afternoon, everyone. It's really an honor to be on this panel with your excellencies from Haiti and Zimbabwe, and of course with Davila, who is an inspiration. Thank you so much for sharing with us. I'm really honored today to represent over 100 civil society organizations that are partners to the School Meals Coalition. Since the civil society call to action in 2023, Catholic Relief Services, along with the International Parliamentarian Network for Education, the Global Child Nutrition Foundation, World Vision, Plan International, Mary's Meals, and the Sun CS movement have all worked together to elevate the role of civil society in supporting government-led meal programs around the world. As civil society organizations, we feel that our most important role can be to strengthen government-led school meal programs through robust participation. This is not only timely, but it's really essential. When we collaborate across sectors, and it doesn't matter if that sector is agriculture or it's health, it's social protection or education, we unlock sustainable, inclusive, and local grounded solutions that really meet the rights and the needs of children. You were mentioning the recent assessment, and we don't have time to go over all the assessment results. I encourage you all to check it out. It's very exciting. But I do want to highlight some of the key results from the assessment of the contributions that civil society organizations are making to government's school meal programs. First, civil society organizations are fueling school meal programs with innovation, with infrastructure, and with impact. We have wonderful examples. One is from World Vision in Vietnam. Their health and nutrition program has worked with the government of Vietnam to expand school meal programs to kindergarten, to introduce school nutrition gardens, and to upgrade kitchen infrastructure. We know that in just one province in Vietnam, 365 malnourished children recovered thanks to these innovations. And this is one small example, but it's an example of the type of support that civil society organizations can provide. Civil society organizations are also quietly working behind the scenes, backing governments with funding, with research, with training, and with community mobilization. Some of you might be familiar with Mary's Meals. They're reaching over 3 million children with cost-effective, homegrown meals while also supporting local economies. We've heard throughout yesterday and today this importance of supporting local economies, and many civil society organizations are working directly in doing that. For example, in Kenya, one of our civil society partners, GASO, has linked women entrepreneurs in agriculture to schools, providing fresh, local meals. This has improved nutrition, it's improving school attendance, but as we've talked about so much in this summit, it's also improving the livelihoods of people in the community. This ability to connect school meals with local farmers, with agricultural entrepreneurs, to really have school meals be at the local grassroots level is an important part of the contributions that many civil society organizations are making as part of the School Meals Coalition. We are also integrating agriculture, health, WASH, education, and in many areas, not just having school meals to provide nutrition for children, but also really using school meals to build overall human capacity. In Honduras, Catholic Relief Services, for example, is working with the Ministry of Education, which is actually represented here today, so greetings to the Ministry of Education from Honduras, to improve reading and literacy scores in children, up by 20% the number of second graders who are able to read at grade level as part of the government's school feeding program that Catholic Relief Services support. Earlier this morning, we heard from the Minister of Education from Rwanda. She had an absolutely wonderful testimony to what can happen when governments and civil society organizations listen to each other and collaborate. She spoke of how programs were thriving, and this is what we see as our role as civil society organizations. Offering ministries, offering governments our expertise in amplifying community voices so we can scale in a way that's inclusive, and is scaled in a way with evidence-driven programs. I want to cite one example from Kenya of an evidence-driven program that's made a big impact. Elimu Bora in Kenya uses budget analysis and litigation to advocate for school meals in a way that encourages transparency and accountability, but also eliminates illegal school fees. So we can see how, in this way, we have a civil society organization that's ensuring the kind of accountability and good financial management that we want and expect in all our programs. These examples are just a few of the ways that civil society is working hand in hand, walking alongside governments to ensure that we align global strategies, that we are able to align those global strategies to national priorities, but we do so in a way that's really rooted in what communities need most at the local level. Civil society organizations are oftentimes those organizations that are really at the last mile, helping school meals programs be successful in the most remote, the most vulnerable, or the most difficult to access communities. And as I conclude, I really want to urge governments, ministries, to work with civil society organizations, to continue to work together to co-design school meal programs right from the start. Civil society organizations can ensure that programs reflect those community needs. We know that one size does not fit all. We know, and Brazil is a wonderful example of this, that what works in one area may not work in another. And oftentimes it is those grassroots, local civil society organizations that have that knowledge and can provide that expertise to the government. I also want to encourage governments and their ministries to invest in joint advocacy, training, and research. Our civil society organizations have an incredible amount of technical expertise, research capacity, and we want to put that at the service of ensuring school meals programs are successful. And to reduce barriers to partnership, we would really like, especially as I mentioned earlier, smaller locally led organizations to be able to contribute and be engaged in school meal programs. It's been said several times during this summit, and it is absolutely true, feeding children is everyone's business. Governments have the mandate, and civil society organizations can bring the technical expertise, the proximity, the creativity, the innovation, and we can make sure that every child has access every day to a school meal, and together we can reach our universal goal of meal coverage by 2030. Thank you.
I don't know about you, ladies and gentlemen, but I have to declare that I'm very inspired by what we heard from this panel. I'm so inspired. We started with Voices of Children. What more meaningful than that in a 2-day conference that is talking about school meals programs? And we have very clear recommendations from them. Thank you so much, Davila, for being the voice of more than 1,000 children on so many continents in 13 countries. Thank you for that. Then we traveled quickly to Haiti, and we heard absolutely impressive stories of how actually providing technical and financial support to small farmers has a direct impact on increasing the quality of the school meals for the children. And we heard about a huge number of children benefiting, but also we heard about very powerful stories of cooperation between the government and World Bank and International Development, Inter-American Development Bank, and we heard about the importance of the mobilization of communities to create school canteens. And I think we all agreed with the minister that it takes faith and it takes courage to always put our children first when we are thinking about what are our government priorities for that. We then traveled to Zimbabwe, and I was personally so impressed by just the commitment to ensure that every child up to the 7th grade has at least one healthy, nutritious meal in school. And I loved the idea of villages that have business units producing vegetables for schools. I already picture that. I picture those farms around schools, and it's so inspiring with communities being mobilized to provide for their children. I think it's beautiful. And I think it's beautiful that everybody on stage reaffirmed again and again what a powerful model the Brazilian government and the Brazilian model is for the work that we are all doing. Thank you so much for that. And we heard from the civil society organizations about how we can really create stronger unity when we are starting together from the planning phase, because civil society can provide the expertise, but also the proximity and the innovation. And why not the accountability that sometimes everybody needs to be able to provide the best services for the children. As I said, I hope you're as inspired as I am with this amazing panel. A round of applause, please. Thank you all very much. And I think we are back to George.
Thank you so much, Dana. And now it's my turn to ask you for a round of applause for them. They have been able to make us catch up with time. Can you believe it? They have done a wonderful job. And why not have a moment? Let's have an official photo for this moment. If you can all come together around, you will stand here, both sides. Davila would be in the middle because she's the star, okay? Then we have an official photo. There you go. Thank you so much. And always wonderful to hear from the voice of the young. Thank you again. Now, in the third segment of this final session, I am going to invite you to pay attention to a fireside chat, because we have to value a number of things, including intercultural approaches and inclusion for the future generations and our planet. I mentioned to you the whole idea of the importance and the role of indigenous people. We even heard yesterday some of the leaders talking about the importance of ensuring that the kind of food that we serve is the food that works, and the knowledge from the people in the places where it comes from. And we have to value that. And we have to make sure that we respect and include those things. That's why we have two strong women who are going to discuss some of this in a fireside chat. So I will be inviting Carmen Burbano, who is director of the School Meals Secretariat, and Ms. Aluki Kotierk, who is chair of the Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues and the Indigenous Peoples Food Systems Coalition. Please, a real round of applause. I've not heard it yet. Over to you, Carmen. You will definitely have microphones.
Here we go. We're about to welcome the closing ceremony for the summit, and I've been looking forward to this conversation with Aluki for pretty much the whole day, and I'm very glad that we're here. Thank you so much for joining me. And this is the last time that I'll speak in the summit, because we'll have the closing session in a few minutes. And so I wanted to share with you that it has been incredibly special to have this summit here. As everybody has mentioned before me, the enormous welcome of the government of Brazil, of the people of Brazil, has been incredibly heartwarming. Their generosity, their enthusiasm, the way that they share their knowledge and their experience with pride is something that I think inspires all of us. And I want to join everybody in thanking Brazil for hosting us and for having us here and for sharing their amazing experience. During the last 2 days, many of you have been coming up to me to say how different, how special this summit has been. The same experience happened to me in France, in Paris in 2023. It seems that these summits are mobilizing. They mobilize people. And it's impossible to know or to measure the value that's been created in meetings like this, because all of you get inspired by what you hear on the stage. A lot of you talk during lunch and during the coffee breaks. We all learn from the school visits that are happening tomorrow. And you go back home and hopefully you do stuff. You take action for your children, for your countries, for the communities that you come from. And that is what the School Meals Coalition is about. It is about you. It is about every one of you in the countries that you come from or from the organizations that you come from. It is about enabling leadership, different types of leadership. And I wanted to share that I joined the World Food Program about 21 years ago. I was very young then, and WFP sent me to Tanzania as a first assignment. And that was my first time when I visited a school and I saw a school meal program. And I absolutely fell in love with the program because I realized that it could change the life of a child, and then it could change the life of a school, and then it could change the life of communities, and that I could, in my lifetime, really make a difference. And so I decided to dedicate my career to it, and I will continue to do that because that's the way that I think that I make a difference. You know, I'm part of a generation, we're all part of a generation, I guess, that unfortunately has not been kind to the earth. We are really witnessing really difficult moments for this planet that houses us, that feeds us, that gives us shelter. The nature that we belong to is being ravaged and assaulted in so many ways by us, by our generation. And I feel very strongly, this is why I am such a big champion of this topic, that we all have a moral obligation to do something to the next generation, to the children that are coming that we just saw on the stage. We owe it to them to give them a better future than the one that we are leaving here. I think we all have, we are all here in one way or another because of that. And it's been such a pleasure to meet all of you and to in any way possible inspire you to do more on this particular topic, and then how it can ripple across sectors, health, nutrition, food systems, education. We've been talking about all of that in the last 2 days. So that's why I'm here. That's why I'm so happy that this summit has been so impactful to many of you. And this conversation with Aluki is very special because I think you're also here because you feel very strongly about this topic and about why it's important. Aluki is the chair of the Indigenous Peoples Food System Coalition, and she is also the chair of the Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues. So we have a leader here with me, and we're talking about leadership. We're talking about standing up for what we believe in. We're talking about spending our time and our energies and our gifts in the service of something that's more important, that really is our purpose. So Aluki, you've been here for 2 days. You've been watching and listening to many of the leaders of different countries. We just heard also a panel of of partnership and a lot of organizations that are also behind this school meals agenda. Why are you here?
Thank you for sharing this space with me. Indigenous food systems can contribute in a very positive way towards school meal programs. Indigenous people's knowledge is rich, diverse, practical, and I think there's an opportunity through the School Meals Coalition to work with Indigenous peoples to ensure that school meals are even better than they currently are. And we've heard such great stories about the numbers and the encouraging positive initiatives that are happening globally. But I think it's particularly important in a school setting because schools have been used, and it's documented certainly in Canada, schools have been used systematically through colonization to try and eliminate the identity of Indigenous peoples. And so I think it's especially important that now there's an opportunity through the school system to do something that will actually empower Indigenous students. And I say this because I often imagine that at the door of a school, anywhere, let's say in my community, that there are many imaginary hooks where Indigenous students, when they approach the school, have to strip who they are and hang that outside the school door because they're now going into a system where they're being taught in a language that is not their mother tongue. They're being taught with materials that are not based on their culture. And then on top of it, there are often good meaning, well-intentioned programs such as a school meal program that might provide food that is not culturally appropriate. And so I think there's an opportunity for us collectively to work together to start shifting that.
See if I can get this on. No. We need to share the mic. No problem. Identity is very important to you. We've been discussing this for a couple of days now. This is okay, now this one. Okay. This, you bring up this topic of Indigenous peoples in a system that isn't theirs, in schools that might not be totally respectful of their own culture, and of course that has a connection, of course, to food and what they eat, and what can we do in the school meal space to maybe provide an opportunity, right, to reverse those assaults on Indigenous culture. So before we go further into this conversation, you talk about Indigenous cultures. Where do you come from? Tell us a bit about you.
So my home community is a small island of a population at the time of a little over 1,000 people. It's about 250 kilometers above the Arctic Circle in the Arctic of Canada.
What is it called?
It's called Igloolik.
Okay.
And it's in the territory of Nunavut. Nunavut in our language means our land because we're always asserting who we are very proudly. So there are 25 communities and they're all flying communities, and the public majority population are Inuit, who are the Indigenous peoples of our territory. And 85% are Inuit, I think I just said that, and the majority of us speak Inuktitut as our mother tongue. So in our territory, we each have schools, And so I was thinking that I would share.
Yeah, I mean, share a little bit about your childhood. Tell us a little bit about your family, your parents. Who was your father? Who was your mother? What were you like as a child?
I'm naturally very shy, and even more so when I was a child. And I'm the oldest of 7. So even though I'm really shy, I'm also very practical because things have to get done.
You had to take care of siblings as well.
Absolutely, all the time. And so my father, even to this day, continues to be a hunter, and he's always been a provider for us. And my mother has been a teacher. And so as the oldest of 7 children, I grew up looking after people, my siblings. And so when I got to an age when I was 19, right away, I thought I always had to look after people. So then I went and proceeded and have 5 children of my own. So I continue to like looking after people.
You are the take-carer of a lot of people, your community, but also your coalitions now and the people that you belong to. You were talking to me yesterday about a memory that you had as we're talking about school meals, about you in school. Share a little bit about your childhood, but that specific moment and how that connects to this conversation.
So because all of our communities are flying communities, many teachers come from away and come to our communities and become teachers. And often in the new school year, we get to know our teacher who often is not Inuk and doesn't know our culture. And so it's often a cultural exchange. And so as an icebreaker, I think it must have been an icebreaker for the teacher to kind of get to know us.
How old were you?
I was a child. I don't remember exactly the age, but I remember it being so pivotal in my mind because it was the first time that I consciously decided to lie, which of course is a no-no. We don't want people lying. But I remember sitting in my desk and there were rows and rows of us students, and the teacher asked, I'm going to go through the classroom and ask, what have you eaten for breakfast? And I was thinking, oh, I'm going to have to share what I ate for breakfast. And so the teacher was naming all the students, and I was listening to them, and there was a classmate who said Frosted Flakes, and I was getting all hot because I was so embarrassed about what I ate, and I heard Frosted Flakes, and I had a moment in that split second of daydreaming, thinking, Frosted Flakes, wow, Frosted Flakes must taste so good, because I had never had Frosted Flakes myself, and I remember feeling like my heart was pounding, and time was becoming very slow because I was trying to determine whether or not I would tell the teacher what I actually ate or whether I would lie. And so by the time the teacher came to me, I blurted out, cereal. And now I think as an adult, I think the reason it was so pivotal for me is because not only did I lie, but the reason behind why I lied. And I realized, and I mean, it shames me now to say, because I'm so proudly Inuk. It shames me now to say that in that moment, child Aluki, little me, felt embarrassed and ashamed to tell this teacher that I had fried seal meat, which is not, from what I understand about the world, is not a typical breakfast for normal people, right? And so there was a great shame that I carried, and so I lied.
Well, so you've talked about it. It must have been really difficult to be, to be that girl, to be in that classroom, and to know that you had to present, you talked about leaving your identity at the door and going into the school and being something else, right?
It actually is a point that angers me, to the point that it motivates me to be a strong advocate for Indigenous people's rights. because Indigenous peoples have the right to be who they are, wherever they are, whatever the ecosystem is, whatever the part of the globe they're from. And so it's moments like that where I see the inequities growing up as a young Indigenous woman, growing up and then becoming a mother and being fiercely protective of my own children, my own Indigenous children. Those are the things that have propelled me, despite my timidness, to say strongly, this is not right, this is not acceptable. And I think the reason I'm here is because I'm wanting to say and extend an invitation as the chair of the Indigenous Peoples Food Systems Coalition to say we want to work with member states. We want to make sure that there is a successful school meals program that meets the needs of Indigenous children, because we want to see Indigenous children thriving and feeling proud about who they are and celebrating the foods that come from our lands. And sea and ice, I would say.
So they never have to lie about what they had for breakfast.
That is the dream. We want young Indigenous children to feel proud about who they are, regardless of if they're agriculturalists. And I will say that over the last 2 days, I have heard so much about agriculture in terms of producing foods for school meals. But I will say, I'm from a people that are hunters. So school meal programs where I'm from need to incorporate seal meat, need to incorporate whales, need to incorporate polar bears, need to incorporate caribou. And those are not things that we're growing ourselves. But we have very capable, very skilled hunters like my father, who we continue to revere in our culture, yet are often looked down upon because they're not formally educated and they don't have the titles as lawyer or doctor, etc.
So the other piece of this conversation, because you brought up the issue of identity, of rights, of the right of children to eat the food of their culture, etc. The other question I have for you is, it's also more sustainable, right? The food systems of Indigenous peoples are inherently more sustainable. They are more respectful of the earth. They are regenerative. They give back more than they take. Isn't that also a reason to make sure that our school meal programs are connected to those Indigenous values in those communities, so that they're also giving back to the earth more than they're taking?
Culturally speaking, even in my culture, for instance, there are sayings in Inuktitut that say, when the first caribou comes by, you don't kill it, because, and that's the same with any mammal, like when the narwhals or the beluga come through the ocean in the beginning of the season, you don't kill them. And then you can wait for the next time that you see them. When we go egg picking in the spring, even as kids, we were always told not to take all the eggs. So I think culturally, there's the idea that we are living with nature, with wildlife. We are part of nature. Nature is part of us. And so it doesn't make sense that we would hurt nature, because it's like hurting ourselves. And the experience I've had working with Indigenous peoples globally is that there's this very similar kind of ways of knowing that would ensure that you want to have that balance between your own life as peoples, as Indigenous peoples, as well as nature.
Yeah, I think there's a lot that we can learn from the way that Indigenous peoples take care of their environment, of the food, and where it comes from. Certainly a lot to learn from if we want to continue living on this planet when we talk about regenerative practices. So Aluki, where do we go from here? Where do we start you're inviting us to have a conversation with Indigenous peoples food systems, with the coalitions that you represent. And we're here in this summit. We have about 80 country delegations and many partners. Where do we start that conversation with you?
I think first and foremost is the recognition that there's a diversity. I talked about Indigenous people's knowledge being very diverse. I think it's important that there be a recognition of the diversity of ecosystems and Indigenous people's food systems, whether it be a hunting, gathering society, whether it's foragers, fishers, agriculturalists. There's different ways of producing and making sure there is culturally and environmentally appropriate foods that are available at the schools. And so I think Indigenous peoples are very keen to work and have that recognition to be able to work with different schools to provide that kind of food. In addition, I think children, Indigenous children, start seeing and feeling pride when they start seeing their own foods on the menu. And I will share that there's examples of how this has been done in different parts of the world. And I know in Northeast India recently, there was an article about it earlier this week, how in Northeast India, some of the schools are using wild edibles to be incorporated into a menu. And when I read through the article, I was struck by how a 14-year-old talked about how they brought a specific wild edible to school that was going to be incorporated into the foods. And I thought, wow, how proud that child must have felt to be able to contribute their own foods to be incorporated into the school meals. And so I know there were different discussions about growing your own foods and how different schools are doing that. I think there's that opportunity to have those discussions at the community level with Indigenous peoples about how do you see Indigenous people's foods in the school system.
Yeah, there's definitely experiences already on the ground, right? So we're not starting from scratch.
Yes.
There's a lot of different models that we already have from countries. So lastly, Aluki, again, you have leaders all around the room. Any final message you want to leave them? Any challenge you want to give them as they go home after our conversation?
I really think that this discussion we've just had, highlighting the ways in which Indigenous knowledge can be incorporated into school meals programs, and knowing that there are already examples. Yesterday at the beginning there was a discussion about highlighting the progress. It would be so amazing 2 years from now at the next summit that there be a section where states come and proudly showcase how they've successfully worked with Indigenous peoples to deliver school meal program that is culturally appropriate, using Indigenous people's knowledge.
So there you go. So that's homework for all of us. We have 2 years to come back to this stage, wherever the summit is next, and be prepared to come and take stock of where we are in incorporating Indigenous people's knowledge, food systems, in school meal programs, incorporating Indigenous communities in the planning of the programs so that we can all stand here next in 2 years, Aluki, and celebrate that.